When life hits you hard, you don't collapse. You stand because every blow is forging something inside you that comfort never could. Strength is not born from ease. It is hammered out in the dark moments when you feel alone, overwhelmed, and ready to quit, but you push anyway. Your mind is the only real battlefield, and the moment you command it, everything around you begins to obey. The world respects the person who refuses to bow to circumstances, the person who understands that adversity is not a punishment, but a summons to rise higher than the version of yourself you used to be. When pain shows up, it is not there to break you. It is there to reveal the force that has been sleeping inside you for years. Every challenge you face is a test asking one question: will you fold, or will you become the kind of person who cannot be broken? The victories you crave are waiting on the other side of your persistence, and every time you keep going when quitting would be easier, you carve a new level of power into your character. Hold your focus, guard your thoughts, and drive forward with relentless determination, because the moment you decide that nothing will stop you, life itself bends under the weight of your will. Pain is the price life charges to separate the weak from the unstoppable, because nothing great has ever been built without struggle, pressure, or the kind of discomfort that makes most people run back to safety. Pain is not there to punish you. It is there to measure you, to reveal what you are really made of when no one is watching, when there is no applause, and when quitting looks easier than breathing. Pain strips away excuses, illusions, and the softness that life gives to those who avoid challenge. It exposes the truth. Most people want strength, but very few are willing to walk through the fire required to earn it. And that is exactly why pain exists: to create a separation, a divide, a line in the sand between those who collapse under pressure and those who rise because of it. When pain arrives, it doesn't ask for permission. It storms into your life, wrecks your comfort, and forces you to confront the limits you thought you had. The weak see that moment and break, believing that the presence of pain means the absence of hope. But the unstoppable look at the same moment and understand that pain is the doorway to becoming someone stronger than they ever imagined. They understand that every struggle is shaping their mind, sharpening their focus, and hardening their resolve. Pain teaches you endurance when you want escape, strength when you want relief, and clarity when everything feels chaotic. It is the greatest teacher because it demands results, not excuses. Most people misunderstand pain. They think it is a signal to retreat, a sign that something is wrong. But the truth is brutal. Pain is often the clearest indicator that you are moving in the right direction. Growth hurts. Evolution hurts. Breaking old habits hurts. Building a new identity hurts. The process of becoming unbreakable is not gentle, calm, or comfortable. It is violent, raw, and unforgiving. But that is exactly why only a few ever reach that level, because only a few are willing to endure that process without running back to what feels easy. Your spirit is not strengthened by the days when everything goes right. It is strengthened by the nights when everything falls apart and you refuse to give in. It is strengthened by the storms that force you to stand tall, even when your legs are shaking. It is strengthened by the moments when your heart is heavy, but your will is heavier. Pain transforms you because it makes you confront the question that defines your destiny. Will you allow this to break you, or will you use it to build yourself into someone so powerful that the world has no choice but to respect you? The unstoppable understand that pain is a currency. The more they endure with purpose, the more powerful they become. They don't seek shortcuts or easy paths because they know those produce fragile, shallow victories. They embrace the grind, the pressure, the discomfort because they know these things carve out a type of inner strength that cannot be faked or borrowed. Pain teaches discipline. It teaches patience. It teaches resilience. It teaches the ability to keep moving forward even when you have every reason to stop. It is the sculptor of legends, and those who become truly unbreakable do so because they stop fearing pain and begin using it. The weak search for comfort. The unstoppable search for meaning. Comfort makes you soft. Pain makes you sharp. Comfort keeps you where you are. Pain pushes you to become who you must be. Comfort whispers, stay here, but pain roars, go further. Comfort may feel good in the moment, but it destroys potential. Pain feels terrible in the moment, but it creates champions. If you want to rise above average, you cannot worship comfort. You must be willing to walk through the battles that others avoid. You must be willing to face what others fear. You must be willing to endure what others escape. That is the separation. Not talent, not luck, not background, but the willingness to suffer with purpose. There will be days when you feel exhausted, when your motivation is dead, when your doubts scream louder than your dreams. That is exactly when pain becomes your greatest ally. When everything around you tells you to stop, pain becomes the signal that you are still in the fight. When everything feels dark, pain becomes the proof that you have not surrendered. When everything feels heavy, pain becomes the weight that strengthens you. Every time you push through it, you evolve. Every time you conquer it, you rise. Every time you refuse to bow to it, you become more unbreakable. Pain is the price life charges to separate the weak from the unstoppable, and life will keep charging that price until you prove which one you are. The question is simple. Will you pay the price and rise, or avoid the price and stay exactly where you are? The answer determines everything. Strength is built the moment you refuse to retreat from discomfort, because that is the exact second you stop living like the average and start forging the kind of power most people never touch. Discomfort is the doorway everyone sees, but only a few walk through, and the reason is simple. It doesn't feel good. It stretches you, breaks routines, challenges your identity, exposes weaknesses you've been hiding behind confidence. Most people run the moment discomfort appears because it threatens the illusion of safety they cling to. But the truth is brutal. The life you want is on the other side of everything you're afraid to face, and the only currency accepted there is your willingness to endure what others avoid. Every time you refuse to back down, every time you force yourself to push when your mind screams stop, every time you step forward when retreating would be easier, you are building a version of yourself capable of carrying far more than you once believed. Discomfort is not the enemy, it is the sculptor. It molds your character, sharpens your will, and destroys the weakness that would have ruined you later. The moment you choose discomfort over comfort, even in the smallest decision, you ignite a process inside you that cannot be reversed. You begin developing mental calluses. You start rewiring your response to hardship. You start teaching your mind that fear does not dictate your direction and fatigue does not decide your finish line. When you refuse to retreat, you take back control from the excuses that have been running your life. You silence the voice that tells you to slow down, take a break, quit early, or wait for a better moment that never comes. You reclaim your identity as someone who acts, not someone who avoids. Strength is never built in comfort, because comfort demands nothing of you. It keeps you the same. It tells you this is enough. But discomfort forces evolution. It pressures you to adapt, to expand, to level up. When you're uncomfortable, you're growing. When you're uncomfortable, you're being tested. When you're uncomfortable, you're being given a chance to prove your future self deserves to exist. Most people ask for strength, but they avoid the very experiences that create it. They want confidence without risk, resilience without struggle, discipline without sacrifice, transformation without friction. That's not how it works. Strength is born from resistance. Just like muscles grow only when pushed beyond their limit, your mind grows only when you push beyond the soft boundaries of your habits and emotions. The moment you refuse to retreat from discomfort, you break the psychological chain that has held you back for years. You stop obeying the instant gratification impulses. You stop negotiating with laziness. You stop giving power to fear. You begin moving with purpose, even when the path is unclear, even when the outcome is uncertain, because you understand that the process itself builds the capacity you need to win. Every challenge, every frustration, every difficult decision becomes an opportunity, and you stop seeing them as obstacles. You start seeing them as training. Discomfort becomes the gym for your spirit, and every rep you complete makes you harder to break. Discomfort also exposes the truth about who you are when no one is watching. Anyone can act strong when life is easy. Anyone can be disciplined when everything goes right. Anyone can look motivated when the path is smooth. But your real character is revealed when you're tired, stressed, misunderstood, under pressure, and still choose to push forward. That is strength. Not the strength people post about, but the strength that actually changes your life. If you refuse to retreat, you force your mind to adapt to a new standard. You eliminate the option of quitting, and your actions begin aligning with your goals instead of your feelings. There will be moments when discomfort feels unbearable, when your mind tries to convince you it's too much, when your body wants relief, when your emotions are desperate for escape. Those moments are the gatekeepers. If you retreat, you stay at the same level forever. If you push, you gain access to the next version of yourself. Strength is not a single moment of glory. It is a collection of 1,000 tiny decisions where you chose the hard path on purpose. Every early morning you didn't want, every difficult conversation you didn't avoid, every workout you didn't skip, every risk you didn't run from, these stack, these compound, these create the unstoppable force living inside disciplined minds. You must understand that discomfort is temporary, but the strength it builds lasts a lifetime. The pain fades, the fatigue fades, the frustration fades, but the power you earn from enduring them becomes part of you. It becomes your armor, your backbone, your inner fire that keeps burning even when life gets dark. The weak retreat because they think discomfort is destroying them. The strong refuse to retreat because they know discomfort is rebuilding them. And the unstoppable? They chase discomfort because they understand that every moment spent outside their comfort zone is another step toward becoming someone the old version of them could never stand beside. Strength is built the moment you refuse to retreat from discomfort. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when conditions are perfect. It happens the instant you say, I'm staying, I'm pushing, I'm not backing off. That decision, repeated over and over, is how champions are made. That willingness to embrace the heat is how leaders are forged. That relentless mindset is how ordinary people rise into extraordinary versions of themselves. You want strength? Then stay in the discomfort. Stay in the struggle. Stay in the fight. It is the only path to becoming truly unbreakable. Your mind is the battlefield. Master it or be owned by it, because everything you gain or lose in life starts with the thoughts you allow, the beliefs you feed, and the voices you choose to obey. Every dream you chase, every goal you fight for, every obstacle you face, they all pass through the filter of your mind before they ever show up in your actions. And here's the brutal truth most people avoid. The greatest enemy you will ever confront is not the world outside you, but the weakness inside you. The doubts, the fears, the excuses, the hesitation, these are the forces that ruin more destinies than failure ever could. Your mind is the command center of your life. And if you don't take control of it, it will take control of you. This is not a poetic idea, it is a law. You either dominate your mind or your mind dominates you. Every day you are in a silent war with thoughts designed to break you. Not because you are cursed, not because you are flawed, but because the human mind naturally chooses the path of least resistance. It loves comfort, it loves safety, it loves familiarity. It wants you to stay exactly where you are, even if where you are is destroying you. That is why mastering your mind is non-negotiable. If you do not train it, it will sabotage your potential. If you do not command it, it will manipulate your decisions. If you do not discipline it, it will drag you back into the same patterns that have held you hostage for years. Mastering your mind begins with awareness, the ability to step back from your thoughts and recognize that not all of them are true, not all of them are useful, and not all of them deserve your attention. Weak minds obey every emotion. Strong minds question everything. When fear shows up, the weak mind says stop, but the mastered mind says prove it wrong. When doubt whispers you're not ready, the weak mind retreats, but the mastered mind says move anyway. When comfort calls you back to the old habits, the weak mind surrenders, but the mastered mind says not anymore. Every time you override the automatic response, you sharpen your ability to lead your own life. The battlefield of the mind is filled with traps. You think you need motivation when what you really need is discipline. You think you lack confidence when what you lack is repetition. You think you have bad luck when what you really have is bad focus. The mind will lie to you to protect your comfort, not your future. It will convince you that slow progress means failure, when in reality slow progress is the exact path to success. It will convince you that one setback means you're not meant for this, when in reality every champion on earth was built from thousands of setbacks. If you believe every lie your mind tells you, you will live your entire life in a cage with the door wide open. To master your mind, you must learn to control your internal environment with the same intensity you try to control your external environment. You clean your room, your desk, your house, but inside your head you allow chaos. You allow negativity to roam unchecked. You allow fear to take the driver's seat. You allow old memories to dictate new decisions. You can't win a war if your headquarters is burning. You must create internal discipline, the discipline to choose powerful thoughts, the discipline to cut off destructive self-talk, the discipline to redirect your focus when your mind starts spiraling into places that weaken you. Mastery is repetition. Mastery is consistency. Mastery is refusing to let your mind operate on autopilot. Understand this, the mind is a tool, not a master. It is designed to serve you, not rule you. But if you never take control, it turns into a tyrant. It tells you what you can't do, where you can't go, who you can't become. It limits you based on your past. It locks you into the identity of who you used to be, not who you're trying to become. When your mind is untrained, it becomes the loyal servant of your fears. When your mind is mastered, it becomes the loyal servant of your goals. The world is filled with people who lost battles they never needed to lose simply because they surrendered mentally long before anything went wrong physically. They quit in their head before they ever started. They lowered their standards because their mind whispered that aiming higher was pointless. They rejected opportunities because their thoughts convinced them they weren't good enough. They avoided risk because their mind fed them the worst-case scenario on repeat. They never realized that the life they were fighting against was a reflection of the mind they refused to master. When you take ownership of your mind, everything changes. You stop reacting and start choosing. You stop fearing and start leading. You stop being controlled by impulses and start being guided by purpose. You build the discipline to act without waiting for the perfect mood. You build the capacity to move forward even when you're scared, even when you're tired, even when you're unsure. That is true strength, the power to command your inner world regardless of what the outer world throws at you. Your mind is the battlefield. Master it or be owned by it. There is no middle ground. There is no neutral position. Every second, every thought, every decision either strengthens your control or weakens it. This is the most important fight of your life. And the moment you choose mastery, you become unstoppable. Every setback is either a command to quit or an invitation to rise. You choose because life will never stop testing the strength you claim to have. Every obstacle that knocks the breath out of you, every disappointment that crushes your expectations, every failure that hits you harder than you expected is placed in front of you for one purpose, to reveal who you truly are beneath the surface. Setbacks expose the truth that comfort hides. They show whether your ambition is real or just something you say to feel good. They show whether your commitment is solid or flimsy. They show whether your dreams are fueled by discipline or held together by fragile enthusiasm. The world isn't impressed by what you say you want. It watches how you respond the moment things go wrong. And in that moment, you face the decision that defines your entire trajectory. Do you treat this setback as a signal to surrender or as a call to evolve into something stronger? Most people crumble at the first sign of resistance. They take the command to quit as if it were destiny. They let a temporary defeat turn into a permanent identity. They assume that struggle means they aren't capable, that failure means they aren't meant for something greater. But that's the mindset of the average, and average is exactly where they stay. The unstoppable understand something. The weak never grasp. Setbacks are strategically placed opportunities, disguised so well that only those with vision, resilience, and inner fire can recognize them. When a setback hits them, they don't shrink, they sharpen, they don't collapse, they calculate, they don't quit, they question how to come back smarter, stronger, and more relentless than before. A setback is not the end, it is a mirror. It shows you what needs to be fixed, strengthened, developed, or destroyed. It shows you where your habits are weak, where your discipline is inconsistent, where your mindset is untrained. It reveals the cracks in your foundation so you can rebuild without those weaknesses destroying you later. Every champion has been humbled by setbacks, not once but repeatedly, not because they were unqualified, but because rising requires refinement. And refinement only happens through resistance. You cannot rise without friction. You cannot evolve without pressure. You cannot transform without being pushed to the edge, where most people choose to quit. What separates those who rise from those who retreat is not talent, luck, or intelligence. It is the decision to treat every setback as a teacher instead of a sentence. The weak see pain and shut down. The strong see pain and wake up. The weak see failure and feel unworthy. The strong see failure and feel challenged. The weak see a dead end. The strong see a detour with a hidden advantage. And this mindset is not something you're born with. It is something you build every time you refuse to accept the command to quit. You choose what meaning you attach to every setback. That meaning determines whether it becomes a burial ground or a launching pad. When you decide that a setback is proof you're not capable, you shrink. When you decide that a setback is proof you're being sharpened, you rise. Your interpretation shapes your reality. The world isn't shaped by what happens to you, but by the story you tell yourself about what happens. Tell yourself the wrong story, and you guarantee defeat. Tell yourself the right one, and you turn every blow into fuel. There will be days when setbacks feel relentless, when everything seems to fall apart at once, when it feels like life has singled you out to break you. In those moments, quitting will feel rational. Walking away will feel justified. Letting go will feel easier than fighting. But right there, in the middle of the pressure, is where the separation happens. Those who quit never understand how close they were to building a breakthrough. Those who rise use the setback as the exact moment they draw a line in the sand and declare, "This will not defeat me." That declaration is not made in comfort. It is forged in chaos, confusion, and pain. Rising doesn't mean pretending the setback didn't hurt. It doesn't mean denying frustration or ignoring fear. Rising means moving anyway. It means carrying the weight and pushing forward even when your confidence is shaken and your strength feels thin. It means refusing to let a temporary event determine your permanent future. It means choosing courage over comfort, discipline over doubt, and persistence over the seductive whisper of giving up. Every setback has two voices. One tells you to stop because it's hard. One tells you to rise because it's worth it. Most people listen to the first voice because it's louder, easier, and aligned with their fears. But the second voice, the quieter one, is the voice that builds legacies. It is the voice of your potential, your future self, your unrealized greatness calling you forward. You choose which voice wins. You choose whether this setback becomes an excuse or a reason. You choose whether this moment becomes your breaking point or your breakthrough. Every setback is either a command to quit or an invitation to rise. You choose. And the moment you choose to rise consistently, relentlessly, without negotiation, you become someone life cannot break. Discipline destroys chaos and gives you control when life feels uncontrollable. Because without discipline, you become a passenger in your own life, dragged around by emotions, impulses, and circumstances you never prepared for. Discipline is the force that stabilizes you when everything around you is shaking. It is the structure that keeps you moving when motivation dies, the order that protects you from your own excuses, and the weapon that cuts through the noise of procrastination, distraction, and fear. When life becomes chaotic, and it always does, the undisciplined collapse, not because they're weak, but because they built nothing solid inside themselves. Discipline is the internal anchor that keeps you from being swept away by the storms you didn't see coming. Chaos wins by catching you unprepared. Discipline wins by making you unshakable. Most people live reactive lives. They wait for problems, then panic when problems arrive. They drift through days with no plans, no priorities, no structure, hoping life will magically fix itself. But hope is not a strategy, and chaos preys on those who operate without one. Discipline is the opposite. It is a decision to control the controllable, to build systems so strong that even when life hits you hard, you don't break, you bend, you adjust, you continue. Discipline is not about perfection, it's about consistency. It's about becoming the kind of person who does what needs to be done regardless of how they feel in the moment. When you build discipline, you take back ownership of your mind. You no longer act based on impulse. You act based on intention. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding strategically. You stop letting fear, laziness, and doubt dictate your actions. Discipline gives you a set of rules you created for yourself, and when you honor those rules daily, you become someone your old self would never recognize. You eliminate chaos, because chaos cannot survive in a mind trained to follow purpose over pleasure and direction over distraction. Life feels uncontrollable when your habits are weak. When you sleep whenever, eat whatever, work whenever, train whenever, you create internal instability, and internal instability amplifies external chaos. But the moment you put order into your habits, waking early, training your body, controlling your environment, executing your tasks, you create a sense of power that carries into every other area of your life. You stop drowning in the chaos because discipline teaches you how to swim through it without losing yourself. Discipline is the bridge between your goals and your reality. Without it, your dreams are just fantasies, unfulfilled promises you keep repeating but never execute. Chaos rises when your words don't match your actions. But discipline is the force that aligns them. It forces you to do the work even when the work is the last thing you want. It forces you to push even when you're tired, uncertain, or overwhelmed. It forces you to build momentum, and momentum is what eventually builds mastery. Chaos disappears the moment discipline takes over, because discipline puts you back in the driver's seat of your life. Many people reject discipline because they think it limits freedom. But the truth is, savage chaos limits freedom. Chaos traps you in emotional reactions. Chaos traps you in financial stress. Chaos traps you in inconsistency, regret, and self-doubt. Discipline frees you because it gives you the power to direct your life instead of merely surviving it. Discipline creates options. Discipline builds opportunities. Discipline gives you predictable results in an unpredictable world. The disciplined person is always more free than the undisciplined because they have control. And control is the highest form of freedom. When life hits you with uncertainty, the undisciplined crumble because they have no foundation. But the disciplined stand firm because their structure holds them up. Their habits keep them steady. Their routines keep them grounded. Their standards keep them focused. They don't rely on emotion. They rely on execution. They don't rely on luck. They rely on consistency. They don't rely on the ideal conditions. They operate regardless of conditions. That is real strength. That is real power. And that is what destroys chaos from the inside out. Discipline also sharpens your perception. When you live with structure, you think clearly. You see opportunities faster. You see threats sooner. You read situations more accurately because your mind isn't clouded by disorder. Chaos clouds judgment. Discipline creates clarity. The more disciplined you become internally, the less external chaos can manipulate or intimidate you. You stop being afraid of what might happen because you trust yourself to handle whatever does happen. That confidence doesn't come from ego, it comes from preparation. Discipline destroys chaos because discipline makes you reliable, especially to yourself. You stop breaking promises to your future. You stop negotiating with your weaknesses. You stop abandoning your goals every time you feel discomfort. Discipline turns you into a machine capable of moving through life with purpose, precision, and power. And when life spirals out of control, as it will, you don't fall apart along with it. You tighten your routines, you sharpen your focus, you double down on the habits that keep you grounded. You rise while others unravel. Discipline destroys chaos and gives you control when life feels uncontrollable. Because discipline creates a version of you that doesn't panic, doesn't break, and doesn't lose direction. Chaos cannot dominate someone who has mastered their habits, trained their emotions, strengthened their focus, and built their life on intentional action. When everything around you falls apart, discipline is the force that keeps you standing, moving, and winning. Your thoughts are seeds, plant power, and power is what you harvest, because every outcome in your life is rooted in the thoughts you consistently allow to grow inside your mind. What you think shapes what you believe shapes how you act, and how you act shapes everything you become. Most people want success but plant thoughts of doubt. They want strength but plant thoughts of fear. They want abundance but plant thoughts of limitation. Then they wonder why their life never matches their ambition. The truth is simple and merciless. Your mind is a garden, and it doesn't care what you plant. It will grow whatever you feed it. Whether you plant strength or weakness, confidence or insecurity, discipline or excuses, the mind will return the harvest exactly as you ordered it. You cannot produce a powerful life with powerless thoughts. Your thoughts create momentum. A single powerful thought can change your entire direction, but a single negative thought repeated long enough can chain you to a life far below your potential. The mind doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you repeatedly think about. And the seeds you plant through repetition become beliefs. Beliefs become identity. Identity becomes destiny. That's why controlling your thoughts is not optional. It is the foundation of everything. You can train your body, build your skills, push your work ethic, but if your thoughts stay weak, small, and chaotic, you will sabotage yourself every step of the way. Thoughts are invisible forces with visible consequences. You can't see them, but you can see what they produce. The person who constantly thinks, "I can't, never will." The person who thinks, "I must," finds a way. The person who feeds their mind with fear creates a life dominated by hesitation. The person who feeds their mind with purpose creates a life driven by action. Thoughts are the architects that design your future long before your actions start building it. Every achievement begins as a single mental seed planted with intention and protected by discipline. But this is where most people fail. They spend their days planting weeds. They entertain negative self-talk, replay past mistakes, imagine worst-case scenarios, and allow the opinions of others to take root in their mind. Then they're shocked when their life grows into something that suffocates them. If you let weeds dominate your mental garden, they will choke out your potential before it ever has a chance to grow. Power cannot flourish on soil poisoned by doubt, fear, and insecurity. You cannot create greatness with thoughts that constantly sabotage your confidence. Planting powerful thoughts isn't about pretending life is perfect. It's about choosing thoughts that strengthen you rather than weaken you. When you think with power, you act with power. When you think with clarity, you move with purpose. When you think with conviction, you become unstoppable. The person who controls their thoughts controls their emotions. The person who controls their emotions controls their actions. The person who controls their actions controls their results. That is the chain of dominance that separates the strong from the spectators. Your mind is always listening. Every complaint, every doubt, every moment of self-criticism becomes a seed. If you keep repeating, "I'm not enough," your mind will make it true by sabotaging your confidence. If you repeat, "This is too hard," your mind will shut down the moment resistance appears. But if you say, "I grow through difficulty," you will start seeing challenges as fuel. If you say, "I am capable," your mind begins scanning for proof instead of excuses. Thoughts aren't just ideas, they are commands, and your mind obeys them more faithfully than you realize. You must also protect your mental garden from outside influence. The world is full of people who throw seeds of negativity, doubt, fear, and limitations into your mind. They do it because they never mastered their own. They project their insecurities onto your ambitions. They attack what they don't understand. They dismiss what they're too weak to pursue. If you allow their thoughts to take root in your mind, you will live a life that reflects their fear instead of your potential. Guard your thoughts with the same intensity you guard your dreams, because they are the same thing. One shapes the other. Powerful thoughts require maintenance. You must water them with repetition. You must expose them to environments that nourish growth. Books, discipline, high standards, ambition, challenge, and people who elevate your mindset. You must remove weeds the moment you see them. Doubt, comparison, hesitation, and negative beliefs that try to return. The person who thinks they can plant powerful thoughts once and remain strong forever is delusional. Mastery requires consistency. Strength requires repetition. Mental power requires daily cultivation. Your thoughts are seeds. Plant power, and power is what you harvest. Plant weakness, and weakness is what you live. Plant excuses, and excuses become your identity. Plant fear, and fear becomes your future. Your life is always catching up to your thoughts, and if you want a life worth living, it begins with mastering the world inside your mind. When you plant power daily, focus, belief, discipline, and purpose, you grow into someone who refuses to be limited, someone who rises through every challenge, someone who becomes truly unbreakable. Persistence is the gatekeeper standing between you and everything you desire. And the brutal truth is most people never get what they want because they stop right at the door, too exhausted, too doubtful, too emotionally fragile to keep pushing when the pressure rises. But persistence isn't some mystical trait reserved for the gifted. It is a decision, a daily confrontation with your own excuses, a battle against the voice in your head that begs for comfort while your destiny demands endurance. Every dream you chase will test you, crush you, stretch you, and force you to question whether you truly want what you say you want. Because life doesn't hand rewards to those who make wishes. It hands rewards to those who refuse to walk away, no matter how many times they're knocked to their knees. When you understand that persistence is not optional but mandatory, everything about the way you move shifts. You stop caring about how long it takes, you stop crying about how heavy the load feels, and you start focusing only on whether you will outlast the obstacles standing in your way. The world bends for the one who won't back down, because while talent burns out and motivation fades, the one who keeps showing up eventually becomes unstoppable. Persistence doesn't look glamorous. It looks like waking up tired and showing up anyway, like getting rejected and trying again, like failing publicly and still choosing to fight privately until you're strong enough to succeed publicly. It looks like sacrifice, like discipline, like commitment when no one is cheering for you, when no one is clapping for you, when no one even believes you can pull it off. It looks like being your own source of fuel, your own motivator, your own ally when the world goes silent. Persistence is the invisible grind no one sees, the relentless push behind closed doors that later makes people call you lucky. But luck is just the reward of a mind that never surrendered, a soul that refused to break, a spirit that kept climbing when everyone else sat down. You don't need the world to believe in you. You need the courage to keep moving long after the world has lost interest. Every time you push through the frustration, you harden your character. Every time you keep going when fear tries to paralyze you, you sharpen your will. Every time you rise after failure, you develop a version of yourself strong enough to handle the life you're trying to build. That is why persistence is the gatekeeper, because until you become the kind of person who can carry greatness, greatness will not open the door. The journey is designed to change you before it rewards you. Too many people want the reward without becoming the person capable of maintaining it, but persistence fixes that. It forges resilience, grit, power, clarity, and the mental toughness needed to thrive when you finally step into what you've been chasing. You must understand that everything you desire has a price, and that price is often persistence in moments when progress feels invisible. The true test isn't whether you can work when life is smooth, but whether you can keep moving when everything feels stuck, when the path is foggy, when the momentum disappears and doubt starts whispering that maybe you're not cut out for this. That is where most people lose, not on the battlefield, but in the waiting, in the slow grind, in the quiet struggle where results come slower than the pain. But if you persist through that phase, you enter rare territory. You build a level of mental strength that becomes your shield, your engine, your competitive edge. You become the person who refuses to settle, who refuses to be average, who refuses to surrender to temporary discomfort when long-term victory is within reach. Persistence is the difference between almost and achieved, between wishing and having, between starting strong and finishing strong. If you want a life that matters, a life that leaves a mark, a life that proves your existence wasn't wasted, then persistence must become your identity, your habit, your default response to everything that tries to block your path. And when you finally arrive at the door of the life you've been fighting for, you won't just walk through it. You'll break it open with the force you earned through every sleepless night, every setback, every sacrifice, and every moment you refuse to quit. That is the power of persistence. It turns the impossible into the inevitable for those bold enough to keep going. You are never defeated until you accept defeat inside your own mind, because every loss you experience in the world is just a reflection of a decision you made within yourself. A decision to stop fighting, to stop believing, to stop pushing. The truth is brutal but freeing. No situation, no failure, no person, and no circumstance can break you unless you hand over your power by surrendering mentally. The moment you tell yourself, "I can't," you collapse. The moment you decide it's over, your strength evaporates. But as long as your mind refuses to bow, the world cannot conquer you. The battlefield is internal long before the consequences appear externally, and the ones who rise in life are those who guard their inner world with ferocity, refusing to let temporary setbacks evolve into permanent identities. Defeat is never forced on you, it's accepted by you, and the moment you reject that acceptance, you become unstoppable. Most people lose long before they fail. They lose in their thoughts, in the quiet spaces where doubt spreads like a virus, infecting every ambition they once believed in. They let fear narrate their future, let insecurity shrink their potential, let past mistakes dictate their worth. They kill their dreams with hesitation disguised as caution, with excuses disguised as logic. But you cannot allow that poison to take root. Your mind must become sacred ground, a place where only strength grows, where only possibility is entertained, where only determination is allowed to take up space. You must be ruthless with the beliefs you allow inside yourself, because those beliefs shape your entire reality. If you permit thoughts of defeat, then you will act defeated. If you nurture thoughts of power, then you will rise with the force of someone who refuses to be broken. Your inner dialogue is your greatest weapon or your greatest enemy, and the choice of which it becomes is entirely yours. You have to understand that life will throw battles at you that feel impossible. You will face seasons where progress disappears, where people doubt you, where opportunities vanish, where pressure rises to a point that feels unbearable. But none of that determines your fate. What determines your fate is whether you stand up mentally when everything around you is collapsing. Victory is not built on ease. It is built on endurance, on the ability to keep your mind aligned with your purpose, even when the world tries to pull you into discouragement. Your environment may be chaotic. Your circumstances may be harsh, but your mind must remain sovereign territory, a place where resolve is strengthened, not shattered. If you can control the battlefield inside, you gain control over everything outside, because external chaos cannot stop an internal giant. The strongest people are not those who avoid storms, but those who walk through storms with the conviction that no storm can dictate their destiny. Every person who has ever achieved greatness faced moments that looked like the end, moments where quitting felt easier, moments where the world whispered that they weren't enough. The difference is that they refused to accept that whisper as truth. They refused to interpret struggle as final. They refused to let fear make decisions on their behalf. They understood that as long as their inner world remained undefeated, their outer world could be rebuilt, reshaped, conquered. Life only breaks those who mentally surrender. Everyone else uses adversity as fuel.